welcome everyone. For those of you who are new to this series, my name is Elizabeth Drembus, and I am the genealogist for the William and Mary Bray School Lab. In service to the Bray School Lab's mission to uncovering, documenting, preserving, and disseminating the history and legacies of the Williamsburg Bray School, we host a monthly series on Zoom in order to share recent genealogical findings, engage the descendant community in this work in order to broaden our understanding of the legacies, and enlist the help of historians, genealogists, as well as the general public in furthering the conversations and the research surrounding the Williamsburg Bray School. The title of the monthly series is Bray School Stories. This evening's focus is seeking Harry, John, and Mary Ashby. So first, some housekeeping items. Once again, we are recording this session, and it will be available later on our YouTube channel. To find it, simply Google Bray School Lab YouTube. If you prefer not to be recorded, please feel free to access this later from our YouTube channel. The monthly sessions are designed to spark conversation. So I'll share a slide and some information, and then we'll pause to take questions and invite you to share your thoughts and your comments. Questions can be placed in the chat and or raised following each slide, just with raising your hand. As I have in the previous sessions, I will share images of the documents referenced throughout the session. I had hoped to be able to provide a bibliography for this evening. I didn't quite get there, but I'm happy to answer questions and hear comments on the documents as well. And I believe we had a number of Ashby family descendant members register for this evening's session. I'm hopeful that they have already logged in. I invite you, Ashby descendant family members, to, if you'd like, you can turn your camera on, unmute yourselves, and introduce yourselves to the group. And we're happy that you're here this evening. I hope that you're here. Any Ashby descendant family members here yet? Maybe not.
Yes.
Do you mind introducing yourself?
My name is Brian Ovis.
Terrific. Welcome. Welcome.
Well, thank you.
All right. As Ashby descendant family members come in, we are welcoming them into the group, and we hope that they will make themselves known. And we're glad to have you all here with us on this journey.
Yes, it's another Ashby.
Excellent.
I'm Janice Mitchell.
Terrific. Thank you for joining us this evening. We're glad you're here.
Thanks for inviting me.
Of course. Of course. All right, let's go ahead and get started. There we go. Share my screen. Terrific. All right, is everyone able to see that screen now?
Yes.
Great, good. All right. So before we dive into the Ashby family and the seeking of Harry and John and Mary, I want to recognize that last month, in August, we marked the date of the death of the teacher Ann Wager, and which essentially was the closing of the Bray School in Williamsburg in 1774. Yesterday happens to be, it was the 29th of September, and that marks the 264th anniversary of the opening of the Williamsburg Bray School. We have a letter. We know that it was opened on Michaelmas, which is in the Anglican calendar of religious holidays, is September 29th. We know from this letter of Mr. Hunter, William Hunter from Williamsburg to the Bray Associates in London, that the opening of the school happened at Michaelmas last. So we know that the letter was written in 1761, and he's referring to the previous September. And this is the progress so far on the current restoration of the Williamsburg Bray School, and hope that you will save the date for the opening of the Williamsburg Bray School at Colonial Williamsburg. Will happen on Friday, November 1st, and we hope you all can come and be a part of that. So just wanted to make sure that we are kind of grounded in these records, and also just kind of these dates, and we're marking these dates. So yesterday was the 264th anniversary of the opening of the Williamsburg Bray School. As we start to go through the records, I do want to acknowledge that you will see racist or offensive language and terms used in those records and in the source citations. This is language that we no longer use in the 21st century. However, owing to the historical importance, and some of these are the titles of these records, the sources are going to be shown in their original state. So I just want to acknowledge that some of these terms are going to be hard to see, and kind of just wanted to acknowledge that to the group. All right, so where we begin, we always begin with the lists of the three attendance lists that we have for the students who attended the Williamsburg Bray School. And for our purposes tonight, we're looking at the 1765 list, which lists Matt Ashby's Harry and John, his sons, and the 1769 list that lists John and Mary Ashby as free. From a 1765 letter, Robert Carter Nicholas basically states that he's not really sure what their ages are. If you recall, the 1762 attendance list was the only list we have that lists the ages of the students. But from this letter, he is guessing that they are between the ages of 4 and 10 years old. So that's what we have to go on. That's what we start with. Any questions at this point before I move on? All right, I'm going to go to the next screen. I am actually the beneficiary of lots of research that's already been done on the Ashby family. I wanted to cite some of this previous research. Enslaving Virginia was an effort at Colonial Williamsburg. Also, Slavery and Remembrance website that I think the group started in about 2016. We even have Matthew Ashby as one of the focuses in the Teacher Institute at Colonial Williamsburg. And certainly when we're talking about free people of color, particularly in the colonies, Paul Heinig's research is invaluable. As he went through, before things were digitized, he went into the courthouses and recorded information, any entry for free people of color. So I am the beneficiary of the research that all of these groups have done and have made available online for free. It's accessible, and if anyone's interested in links to that, I can certainly provide those. But this is what we know. We know that Matthew Ashby and his brother John were the sons of Mary Ashby. We know that she was a white indentured servant in the household of a tavern keeper by the name of James Shields. And this is an image of an inventory of James Shields' estate from 1727. And in it we see, I can write in here, Mary Ashby, white woman servant, Matthew and John, mulatto children of the said Mary. So that's where we know that Matthew Ashby and his brother John are the children of a Mary Ashby. Now, we don't know whether their father was a man who was free African American or African at this point, or whether he was an enslaved man. We don't have that information. What we do know, because of the rules, that Mary Ashby was a free white woman. And so Matthew and John were born free. However, because they were mixed race, they were bonded into service until they were 31 years old. The other piece of information that we have is that Matthew Ashby was married to an enslaved woman named Anne, who belonged to, who was enslaved by Samuel Spur of Williamsburg. And so that's kind of that overview, that prehistory of the Ashby family before we get to the children of Matthew Ashby being listed in the Williamsburg Bray School attendance list. Any questions or things to add? And if any other Ashby family descendant members have joined us, please make yourself known and we welcome you in. But any questions so far? No? All right, we will move on. So this is what we have with regard to Matthew Ashby and the children who were Bray School scholars. It's a very short, compacted amount of time from when we see the birth of Mary in 1764. We know that 1765 is when Harry and John were at the school. And then we know that Matthew Ashby died sometime after 1771 because his wife was remarried by 1772. And so I'll go through and show you the records that we have that put this timeline together. So here is the baptismal record in Bruton Parish for Mary, the daughter of Matthew Ashby and Anne, his wife, born October 24th, 1764. And so that we actually then have essentially a vital record for her. We know from the executive journals, the Council of Colonial Virginia record, that Matthew Ashby petitioned to be allowed to free his wife and his children. Now, what's interesting in this petition is we know what his wife's name is. We know who her enslaver was, that the children had been enslaved by Samuel Spur. Matthew Ashby was able to purchase his children and his wife and purchase their freedom. And now he had to go. It wasn't enough just to purchase them from Samuel Spur, but he also had to go and petition to the Colonial Council to have permission granted so that he could free them. And he got that permission. But so this is that record in 1769. Almost immediately after, he writes his will to protect his family now that he's been able to free them and they're together. And he makes provisions for his children, John and Mary, and for his wife for their education. What's interesting is we lose track of Harry at this point. We don't know whether Harry was also the son of Anne. We don't know why Harry was not taken care of as far as the will goes. Maybe he was a little older. These are questions we'd love answers to, but we just don't know at this point. One of the last records we see of Matthew Ashby is in an ad that was placed in Williamsburg in the Virginia Gazette. A man by the name of Sam had kind of taken his leave, had left the plantation in Amelia County in September of 1770. And Matthew Mays, who is placing the ad for Sam, says that he is known to be at Matthew Ashby's in Williamsburg. This raises a lot of questions about what is the communication between the counties among the African American community, the free and the enslaved community. And we don't really know whether Sam was caught at this point, and we don't know if Matthew Ashby, who, if that was in fact true, that he was with Matthew Ashby's household. But again, these are the little bits of little bits of evidence that we have for Matthew Ashby and his family. And then we know by 1772 Matthew Ashby has passed away because George Jones has married the widow Ashby, Ann, and places an ad in the Virginia Gazette that he's trying to settle up the estate of Matthew Ashby, who is deceased, and he needs creditors, and he needs people to, come and he needs to close the books on the estate, essentially. So this is what we're working with Matthew Ashby and his family. Any questions at this point? I don't want to be going too quickly, but just want to be able to give you as much of the information as we can that we're working with. And again, I welcome if there are Ashby family members who have since joined us. I saw that there was a little bit of activity in the waiting room. If you are here and would like to identify yourself and introduce yourself, please feel free to do that. We'd love to acknowledge, but we're glad you're here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move on. So as we remember from the Shields inventory, the Shields estate inventory, Matthew had a brother, John. So we want to look and see if there's any information that we can find about the cousins of the Bray School scholars. So we do actually have quite a bit of information. This family tree actually comes from Ashby family members who have a large family tree hanging in the Ashby Guest House at Colonial Williamsburg, and I will have a photo of that in just a few slides. But we want to kind of look at this family tree and this family dynamic. Matthew and John are the brothers, and Anne and Sarah are their wives. And all of a sudden, we start to see that their children are being named John and Matthew, kind of just as either tribute to the brothers, tribute to their perhaps a grandfather, but we start to see that repetition of names. And so I want to keep that in mind as we're going through. So this is what we have. On the left, we have the Matthew Ashby family and some of those post Matthew Ashby's death entries that we've been able to find. And then we have the John Ashby family. And there's been a little bit more information that we've been able to find for that. I put the historical context box in here because I want us to keep in mind kind of what's happening around the Ashby family at this point. In 1774, Anne Wager, the teacher at the Williamsburg Bray School, passes away, which essentially closes the school. Now, we don't have attendance records after 1769, so we don't know whether there were other Ashby children that may have attended and had the opportunity to attend the Williamsburg Bray School. We just don't know. By 1776, we know the Declaration of Independence is signed and the colonies are now at war. And really, we mark the end of the Revolutionary War around 1783. So this is that time period that I kind of chose to just kind of encapsulate what we know about the John Ashby family and the bit that we know about Matthew Ashby family after his passing. And I'll go ahead and show you images of the records. We won't go through everything, but just want to give you a kind of a sense of what the records are that we're using. So on the left is the estate accounting for the Crawley estate. And we see that John Ashby is paying rent. This rent entry is dated 1771. We know that the Ashby, John Ashby's family is on the Crawley estate and paying rent starting in the 1760s up until about 1776, I believe, 75. And then we have an early census. It's from the enumeration of Virginia. This is 1782. We have a Nanny Jones. We believe that is Anne Ashby with her second married name, Jones. She's marked as a free person, and there are 3 people in her household. So could that be herself and John and Mary? Where is George Jones, her husband? He's not listed in this entry. So that's the little bit that we've been able to grab hold and see if maybe that's where our Bray School scholars are at that point. in 17, I'm losing track. This is an entry for, oops, hold on, let me go back. This is an entry for, we know that John Ashby is deceased. So this is Matthew Ashby's brother, John, is dead by 1776. And so there's an order in the Bruton Parish Register that the church wardens of Bruton Parish are to bind out the orphans of John Ashby deceased. And also there's a mention of Matt Ashby there just above the line for poor orphans according to the rights of law. So again, it's just one little entry into a court record. And remember, the courts and the church is still fairly closely tied together. And so this is that entry that we know that John Ashby is deceased and that the children are to be bound out. In 1776, Matthew Ashby, and this is where I wish the record was just a little bit more complete. It says Matthew Ashby, an infant about, and I wish it said how many years old he was, orphan of blank Ashby, deceased. So this Matthew Ashby could be the son of John Ashby, or it could be the son of Matthew Ashby. Right now, we're working with the idea that this is probably John Ashby, John Ashby's son, but he enters into, he binds himself as an apprentice to a man by the name of Mr. Cole, Matthew Cole, to learn, John Cole, to learn the art of shoemaking. So he's binding himself in to Mr. Cole to learn a trade. And we don't know how long the apprenticeship would have lasted. Normally they, well, I'm not going to say normally. I don't know how long this was, but this would have been an evidence of John Ashby's son, Matthew. We're fairly certain because of the timing and because of the age. And then we also have an entry, Sarah Ashby, the mother of a Continental soldier in service of this state, is allowed 50 pounds towards her support for 1 year. So coming from a background where I was a genealogist previously with the Daughters of the American Revolution, this kind of piques my interest because, okay, that means there must be more records. Are there any other records where we can trace Ashby participation in the war, and what might those records look like? But before we move on to that, I want to kind of pause. You've just seen a lot of information. Curious if anybody has any questions or comments. Would love to hear what you're thinking at this point. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead, go forward. All right. So going into the records in fold 3, I was able to find a John Ashby who was on a payroll for Captain Massey's company in November of 1777. So need to make sure that Captain Massey's company was actually part, and this does say Continental Forces, so that matches the entry for Sarah, that her son was a member of the Continental line. But we needed to make sure that this John Ashby would have actually been, what do we know about the regiment? Can we place him in Williamsburg to make sure that it is actually the same John Ashby? And sure enough, looking up the history of the regiment, it was raised in December of 1775 at Williamsburg for service with the Continental Army. So we looked to see whether or not there was a pension record. There was a rejected pension, so which didn't give us very much information at all. And so this is the only record I have been able to find for sure that puts John Ashby of Williamsburg area in service with the Revolutionary War in the right place at the right time. And so just wanted to be able to share that with you. So we have, you know, this building history of this Ashby family involved in things in Williamsburg and in time when a lot of amazing change is happening in the colony. And so just wanted to be able to share that with you all. So any other any questions, any comments before we move forward? And I did want to show you, this is a photograph of the Ashby family tree that's hanging in the Ashby guest house at Colonial Williamsburg. And so up here we have Mary Ashby, we have Matthew and John and their children. And then these are various branches of the Ashby family trees and Ashby family members, but we haven't quite been able to connect them just yet. So that's what the work is that we're endeavoring to do. So again, all of this research had been really done before I arrived, but I was able to make sure that we had all the records, we had those accounted for, and before we could go forward. So, and that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to go ahead forward and show you what we've been able to do at this point. So it's important to realize that we've got Williamsburg, we've got York County, we've got James City County, and there's a lot of movement between those three. And so maps are a really great tool. And I want to give a shout out to Leslie Skinner and Mary Lassiter, who have been able to provide some of these maps that have just been helping me ground where we put the Ashby family members, how we center, and how we understand the movements. So this map here, of course, is the Frenchman's map of Williamsburg, dating to about 1782-83. This is another map around the same time period. It's a different perspective because Williamsburg is over here and you would be so the top of the map is actually east, and so north is over here. But I circled this area because this is the Crawley estate, and I'm wondering if this is the Crawley area where John Ashby had been renting land for those many years. We make a huge leap forward in time with these two maps. This is James City County map 1865 that shows the free people of color settlement that was going to become the hot water track area, and Williamsburg's down over here. This map over here shows the location of the land from Kings Creek going eastward to Yorktown, which is eventually going to become the reservation area, and then, of course, ultimately the Naval Weapons Station area. But in all of these places, we, through the records, we are able to find mentions of Ashby family members. So I wanted to be able to just show you that we've got some maps. We're trying to figure out the movement of people and where people were at certain times.
Question.
Hi, Linda, how are you?
I'm blessed. I was interested in this map. My question was, I saw where it went down to York County, all the way down in the York County area. Now, at that time, Magruder was considered a part of Yorktown, a part of York County. So I'm trying to see where does it, because the Crawley family is, like you say, West, but if you keep going up, you would be going up towards Magruder. So that's what I'm trying to figure. I didn't see, I might missed it, because see anything where you're showing that part of the map. So that would be a big descendant enabling us to see places. Okay.
That's great. Yes, I would. From what I could tell, going through everything that I had collected in the last year, I haven't quite been able to pinpoint Magruder on one of these maps just yet. But if the group has maps available, do we have?
Elizabeth, Magruder is where the U.S. weapons station is now. It's the same place.
Okay, so then that's on this map here. And let me see if I can. I have a larger version of it, but I don't know that I have. I don't know that I can get to it on this.
If you look at something from the 1940s, if you look
Yeah.
at something from the 1940s, 1930s, I'm sorry, you'll see
1930, yeah.
Magruder. You'll see Magruder, and then you'll see it's the same place that that military
Okay.
site is, which is very secure. You have to have permission. And
Right,
Sarah,
right.
cousin Linda here, we did have permission to visit it a number of years ago. But the town is on that site. That is that
Okay.
town.
Okay,
The buildings and so forth, the cemetery, everything is still there.
right.
Right.
Yes.
Teddy.
Hey, how you doing?
And Elizabeth, we do have a comment in the chat from Leslie Skinner
Okay.
reading, we have Magruder maps
Oh, good.
that can be sent to you.
Terrific. Thank
Yes,
you,
that's
Leslie.
it.
Thank you.
Yes.
And
They
then a
exist.
question about, can links to where these maps are found, can the links be shared?
You could
As
Google
well,
it
that
and
was a
find the whole
question.
story. You could if you
Um,
Google Magruder, you'll find the whole history there. Mhm.
let me see. You know what? I wish I had 2 or 3 monitors right now with me. If you want to leave me a message, I will share these links out.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got 2 monitors, so I'll just Google it and send it to you.
Thanks, Teddy.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so links to the maps. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. Just a little bit technically challenged on this, and wish I had my bigger computer right now. But I will, if everybody wants, I can put a bibliography together. How about this? I can put a bibliography together with links, and then if you registered for this session, I can go ahead and follow up with an email and send that out. Does that sound? And that will have links to all of the records that I'm showing, because most of them come from either Ancestry, Fold3, or Family Search. Does that sound like a solution?
Yes, thank you.
It sounds good
Great.
for me, but please make it simple.
Okay,
Thank you.
simple links. Okay, will do.
Hey, did that.
So, Teddy and Linda, would you like to introduce yourselves as Ashby family descendant members?
Oh yeah, okay. I'm Theodore Ashby, and I am a descendant of John Ashby, who's a descendant of William Ashby, who is a descendant of William S. Ashby. And that starts at 1820. So I have this big gap. I got this gap. I can't connect Harry, John, or Mary to William and John and a couple other people. Anyway, here I am in Philadelphia, PA, 2024, alive and kicking. Been doing this for 30, 40 years, whatever. And my cousin is on here. Her name is Sarah Linda Ashby Howard.
Yes.
Okay,
Would you
I
like?
got that. I am Emmanuel. My father was Forrest Ashby, who was the father of
The son.
my granddaddy was
Grandson.
Emmanuel. My
Grandson
great granddaddy
Emmanuel.
was Emmanuel. The great
Yeah.
granddaddy before him was Emmanuel.
Yes.
Now, to where we are on that map, we've been working for years, but we know we're up there. There are several different groups of us here, and as you met us last week at the Elks, we had opportunity to bring several different groups in, and I'm hoping to have another session with you because they're really interested. And so some of this stuff right now is even foreign to me because I've been digging in it with you, digging in it years, but I am in the local phone book. I don't answer the phone before 11 and not after 7, but we will be working with Elizabeth because we want to know as much information about our forefathers, about our legacies that we can. And we're interested in this because we lived in this town. Most of us as local here were born, bred, and probably would be dead in this same area. Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Thank you both. Yep. All right, well, let's go look at Ashby's in the records. So as a genealogist, my next step would be, okay, what other records are available, and let's start finding them. We usually say census records. However, for 1790 and 1800 and 1810, federal censuses don't exist well, at least for 1810, for James City County no longer exists, but for 1790 and 1800, we're out of luck here in this area and in Virginia. So what's the alternative? Everybody who has come to any of my presentations, you know how I rave about the tax list, personal property tax list. Those are the records where I'm able to go and you go year by year by year. Now, I'm going to caution you that the tax lists don't give family information and relationship information, but they do give you a snapshot of where someone is at a particular time. And as you see, as you track them year by year by year, and all of a sudden someone else might come up with the same name. That's when you start to see someone enter into the tax list. You know that that person has come of age, is around 21, 20, depending on the year and depending on what the rule was at that point, but it's usually around 20, 21 years old. That person then enters the tax rolls. And so that's what I've been doing, is going year by year, starting in 1782, and then going to 1850 and looking at the tax records and any other records that we can find that are consistent every year for the areas of Williamsburg, York County, and James City County. I still need to expand into Charles City County and Surrey County, but right now, those are the ones I've been working on. And so these are two examples. In 1785, we see a John Ashby, and he's just one person in the record that is of tithable age. That doesn't mean that there aren't children or a wife in there, but it's usually the men are of tithable age, and then usually children who become, I think it's the age of 16, they will also become tithable. So if he did have a child that was 16 years old, you would see that instead of a 1, you'd see the 2. And then the other entries are the number of horses and the number of cattle that he has that he's being taxed on. We jump forward to 1797, and all of a sudden, John Ashby is joined in the tax records by James Ashby, Richard Ashby, and Matthew Ashby. We believe these may be his brothers, and so that fills out that John Ashby family tree. So these would have been the 3 brothers by 1797 in the tax list. So, any questions on that? Let me make sure there was anything else I wanted to make sure. This is kind of an ongoing effort. And so as I move forward through other records, we're going to talk a little bit about other census records. We're going to talk about other free registers of Black people. We're going to talk about those registers. We'll kind of add to that. But right now, this is kind of more the methodology piece of this presentation. Normally you would look at census records, but for our cases, it's not available. So then we had to substitute and use the personal property tax records. The next earlier records that we were able to find were Ashby's in marriage records. And so this is an example of 1796. We have a Henry Ashby marrying Susanna Jones. I am wondering whether this Henry is the Harry that was our Bray School scholar.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit later. He would have been, he was in the 1765 attendance list. So this would have been, he would have been older at this point, but maybe this was the first time he got married. Maybe this was the second marriage, but this could be him. And so this is what that marriage kind of, it's a consent and a bond. This is what this looks like. And then we have in 1818, we have Littleton Carter marrying a Susanna Ashby. In 1812, we have a Samuel Scott marrying a Polly Ashby. When we're talking about females, then we need to recognize that then their surnames are going to change with their marriages. And so we're going to need to be looking for Ashby descendants with other last names, in this case, either Scott or Carter. And so this is an example of the marriage bond for Littleton Carter and Susanna Ashby. There's been some question in some of the research whether this Polly could have been Mary Ashby. We know that Polly is a nickname for Mary. We don't know. We still need to do some more research. And this is why the session was called Seeking Harry and Mary and John, because this research is not yet complete. Teddy, I see your hand is raised.
Yes.
Text
So
got
you know what? The next one you're getting ready to do Henry Ashby and Letitia Ashby.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for about the last 30 years almost, I have had Henry Ashby and Letitia Ashby because I've been trying to find out. One of the children of John or William is Letitia Ashby, and she married an Ashby. So I don't know, did they put her married name in, or was this her maiden name? So anyway, I'm glad to see you are having that same quandary.
Yeah.
Ashby
Yeah.
married Ashby, because I've had that since, I don't know, the 1970s. I have known about Henry and Letitia since the 1970s.
Wow.
And trying to break that.
Yeah. Break that brick
And
wall.
even the Williamsburg genealogist who worked with me on that guest house. By the way, that tree is so old I could throw it in the trash.
Oh,
That we couldn't get that Letitia Ashby Henry Ashby thing. They had the same. So we just never disclosed it. We just left it off until we find out.
yeah, I'm not real sure. It very well could be that you have, like, second and third cousins marrying each other. So it very well could be that she does carry the Ashby last name, that is her maiden name.
Yep.
So we're not sure. I don't
Right.
know that I have an image of their marriage record. I think I went with Thomas Ashby marrying Patsy Davenport as the other image, because what I'm also curious about and looking at is who is signing their names and who is using an X. And, we always want to focus on what the legacy of the Bray School was. And we know that reading was certainly taught. We know that they needed to learn how to spell. Writing is still being debated, but it is curious to see, what are those legacies that we can find, in any little bit of information. So we just kind of focus on that. But these are examples of the of Ashby's in the records where we don't have census records, where we don't have vital records. This is what we've been able to locate. And so to try and you're right, Teddy, to kind of figure out who Henry Ashby's parents were, who Letitia Ashby's parents were, and we go back, and how are we going to connect them back to either the Bray School scholars or even back one more generation, Matthew and John.
I have Letitia Ashby's parents. I don't have Henry's.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Well, you and I will have to talk then.
Elizabeth, we also do have a question in the chat asking you to clarify the location of the Ashby guest house and whether whether the family tree can be viewed without a guest pass.
So what I understand from, and Miss Linda, correct me if I'm wrong, when we spoke with Mr. Cunningham, he said that if you do need to call to the lodge, I think it's in the lodge, and call ahead and say that you are an Ashby family descendant member, and they will make arrangements to take you to the guest house to view the family tree. And there's also quite a number of other portraits and some other memorabilia that's also on display there as well. Generally, so you don't need to be a guest at the lodge. But what they do recommend is normally the viewing times would be after someone has checked out before the next person's checked in. So it's that kind of afternoon, middle of the early afternoon time period. Linda, am I right on that? Is that what he said the other night?
Yes, basically, it's a functioning of building. Therefore, checkout time is between 11 and 12. Check-in time is 4. What you're going to be seeing is simply the hallway. So they'll be able to allow you to just go into the hallway, and then the entrance going up to the second floor is where they have all the paraphernalia and the tree and things. So it's not that hard to get in, but you do have to make preparations, because it's just like you being in a hotel, people running in and out. And of course, it's the time of year that that's there. So
And they have to give you the key card so you can get in.
well, yeah, that's why I say it all depends on that time of year, because sometimes, like when you guys went on to Ted, they know that you all were coming. I'd already taken care of a lot of that. But other times, so when people going over there, they usually take a bellman at a certain time. And a couple of people have been blessed that a lot of people that work there knew Ashby's, and so they'll, if they're not busy, they'll take you on around it. So, but yes, it's a matter of
and
security
swipe the
for that
card.
building.
But you still need a key card. You can't, it's not like a hotel lobby. You can get to that hallway without a
No.
key.
Right,
It's a,
right.
Have a key card.
it's a secured ring of a brand new ring that was opened in 2007. And it's two sides. One side has the Washington for Martha Washington. The other side has the Ashby. Yes.
Mhm.
The Custis and the Ashbys.
Yep. Yeah.
And guess what? Everybody on this list here.
Yeah.
So my DNA is actually connected to Martha Custis's son's descendants.
Okay.
So the Custis house and the Ashby house, I am connected to. Thank you.
Very
I just
good.
thought I'd throw that in.
I am also related to Martha Custis and her sons, Daniel Park, etc. Custis.
Okay,
Wow,
you're part of the
yeah.
Syfax family, part of the Syfax. Great.
So
great.
it's through her grandmother, who was a Macon.
Okay.
That's our shared ancestry, is
Yeah.
the Macon line.
Beautiful.
She was named after her grandmother, who was a
Yeah,
Macon.
that just, Renata, I just got that DNA connection this past 2 years.
Ah, okay.
And so I know, you know, Stephen Hammond, he is manager of that.
Yes, I do.
Site.
Yes.
So I was his in-law, now I'm his cousin.
Okay. Small world. Well, hi, cousin.
Excellent. Folks, I'm just looking at the time. I'm going to go ahead and move us onward. And so the next thing I want to talk about was where I was able to find Ashby entries in what is referred to what's called the Free Negro and Mulatto Registers. Again, I added the historical context box so that we could understand what was going on. We know that the Ashby families were free people of color. And the question always comes up, well, how free were they if they were under certain rules that they had to follow and things that they weren't allowed to do that the white population was able to do? So I wanted to give this historical context that in 1793, we had the Fugitive Slave Act. That year is when registration of free people of color began in Virginia with the passage of the law. And so the law states that free people had to register with the clerk of court in the county where they resided, and they had to carry these free papers with them at all times. The clerk would record the names, the ages, height, complexion. Sometimes they would record the parents' names. I've seen that in other counties in Virginia. I've not come across that, unfortunately, here in the York County and James City County records. But they also would note whether or not they had been manumitted or whether they were born free. And from most, I think all the Ashby entries, they were born free. So we have just in kind of this context of like 1800 was Gabriel's conspiracy. In 1806, there was an act passed that if you were freed after May 1st of 1806, you were required to leave the Commonwealth. The Ashbys were free before that. So they, what I understand, if I'm reading the law correctly, is that they were not required to leave the state. In 1808, of course, is when the act prohibiting the importation of slaves into the states, into the United States occurred. And so while we have free people of color in the state of Virginia, we also have these mechanisms for surveillance. And that's really what these registers were for. Now, as a genealogist, these are actually a goldmine of information because we do get a description of the ancestors. We get their ages, which gives us a rough estimate of when they were born, so that these are become almost vital records for us to use. And so this is an example of an entry for John Ashby in 1814 and for William Ashby in 1814 in York County. And so as part of a large project, the York County Records Project. These records, along with a lot of other records, were transcribed. And so what you see behind the image, the original image, is the transcribed records that are available at the Rockefeller Library. And huge shout out. I believe Julie Richter is here with us this evening. Want to acknowledge the work that she and her colleagues did on the work of the York County Records Project. And also, when we're talking about laws, I kind of want to recommend this book for anyone who's interested in really just kind of understanding what the laws were at certain time periods, because the laws would change. They were very reactive. And so I use this book pretty religiously to figure out what was going on at any given time period. So just wanted to be able to show, this is what, these are some of the variety of records that are available when you are doing this type of genealogical research. I'm going to go ahead and move on to 1830s in York County and in James City County. We have these amazing records starting in 1833, going through 1836 in James City County, and for York County, 1839. And what we have are these entries for Ashby family members and other people of free people of color. But not only do we have the names of the heads of households, but we have the relationships of the other people in the household. So here we have a Philip Ashby and his children, William, Betsy, Matt, Sarah, and James. We have a Jack Ashby with a wife, Susan. Now this is 1833, but could that be the same John as in the earlier entry in 1814? Jack Ashby has a wife named Susan and children Matt and John. Again, we're starting to see the repetition of that Matthew and John Ashby way back from the ancestors is still being carried forward into the records. At the bottom, we have a Lucretia Ashby with children William and Lucretia and grandchildren Susan, Mary, and Harriet Ashby. So these have just been again, a gold mine of information for us to be able to pull family names, put them together in a certain place and time. And so this has become part of all that tracking, that year by year tracking that I've been doing. So this is for York County. This is an example of a James City County entry. Same kind of thing, not in alphabetical order. But what I also wanted to bring to your attention is that you could find other Ashby family members in other households. So in this case, we have Robert Wallace and his sister Susan Wallace and her children Lucy, Tom, Siller, and Walter. And Richard Ashby is now living with them on Park Jones's land in James City County. So then we got a question, okay, what's the relationship between the Ashbys and the Wallaces at this point? And what's happening that, and how old could this Richard Ashby be? We don't know, unfortunately. But again, this is all that just combing the records and just pulling as much information together as we can, so then we can lay it all out and start to look at what are the relationships we're seeing? What are the patterns that we're seeing? So any questions before we move on? I know I'm kind of picking the pace up a little bit, but I wanted to just make sure that we get as much of this in. Any questions, any comments?
Elizabeth, there are some comments going back a little bit about the cousins or, second and third cousins and others marrying. Is there any more room for conversation? Anyone wants to mention that, raise a question about that? And then there was a question about the Black laws in Virginia, and it looks like the link to that has been placed in the chat for everyone as well.
Okay.
But if anyone wanted to just spend a minute talking about the question of cousins and marriage,
sure.
then if someone wants to unmute themselves, if they would like.
It's not uncommon in several cultures to intermarry in the family. In fact, in Iran particularly, you find marriage contracts being made between family groups that are interrelated. And I know for sure on both sides of my family, both maternal and paternal, we have cousins, first cousins married. My great grandparents were first cousins. So it would not be a stretch of the imagination if even within the mulatto or African American communities that were closely linked through plantations, so to speak, or family groups, that they might intermarry. I wouldn't think it would be far-fetched.
In the Black American, our culture, we try to muffle it because if you remember, you're either going to marry a mostly second or third cousin, or you're going to find an Indian, or you're going to find another, I don't know what it was, mulatto, I'm not sure. But yeah, we have had family reunions that have had quite a bit of discussion. And so this is just during that time, and probably since it's probably stopped a whole lot since everybody got a car, everybody can move. But yes, I do that does can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can.
Oh, okay. I do believe it. My daddy, when we first went into Magruder back in the early 70s, late 80s, before 9/11, when we could go in, I had a map to him, and several other elders in our community had me join this map, all about the Jones, the road going into the church, Montgomery. And if you liked a young lady, you would sometimes pick your second or third cousin and move one tree over, and she either dropped a E or the winds picked up a E or dropped it. And simply cooks became cook without the E. So it was really a time of what was needed at that time. The difference is that they were able to make the choices and they weren't forced to. I mean, when I say forced, they weren't enslaved into a point where you were matched.
Right. Thank you both for sharing that. Any other comments or questions before we move on? Thank you both. I appreciate that. We're going to jump from, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Elizabeth, in the comments, I'm reading female Ashby descendants, depending on their line, now have a proven patriot to join the DAR, that is Daughters of the American Revolution.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
That leaves me with a question to ask. Were Black people excluded from the DAR registries?
At a time, for a while, well,
I mean, post-slavery, obviously during slavery, regrettably, they weren't treated like humans, horribly not treated like humans. But I mean, post-slavery, I mean, when did they allow Black women to register, or were they always excluded?
so
I don't fall into DAR category because my family on both sides did not come until the earliest would be the 1880s.
Well,
okay.
we had three of them. We had in Virginia, in the city of Williamsburg. I know one of them is online now, but we do have three.
Yep.
And two of them I know is a family member, and the third young lady haven't had time to get it together because I'm slow. I'm old and slow, but I'm quick and efficient when I move. So I think Jeanette can probably tell you because she was the first one. But once you prove your lineage, that's not much they can do. You just have to prove it and pull it out. And my girl Jay did her thing. So yes.
So to
I'm
answer,
proud.
I will quickly answer the question. So Daughters of the American Revolution, founded in 1890s. My DAR friends who are on this call, please correct me if I'm wrong. There was a woman of color who was very early on, who was actually a real daughter. She was the daughter of a patriot, and she was a woman of color, and she was a member of the DAR in the 1890s. So it's been a very, from the beginning, women of color were members. Now, that being said, there was definitely a time period where they were not. But by 1984, there was a court case, and after that, that women of color were much more readily accepted, I'll put it that way. So then you do have quite a large number of women of color who are now members of the DAR, and they're active members, and they're in leadership positions as well. And so that's a story for that. There's more to that than what I'm able to do at this point, but the answer is yes, they were members. No, they were denied membership for a time, and yes, they are absolutely welcomed and invited in now. So if anybody else,
I'm happy to hear
Oh,
that.
yeah.
okay,
And now people of color hold offices in the DAR. And
yes.
I have my notebook here because I have a sponsor at the DAR where they reached out to me because they had done the research and said, Teddy, you are a descendant of a patriot. So they're the ones who told me.
Elizabeth,
That was back in about 2000 here in Pennsylvania.
Elizabeth,
But no,
this is
really, they
this is
have
KJ.
Okay,
Eliz-
KJ.
This is KJ, and I was a registrar a very long time with the Williamsburg chapter, and Johnette and Bonnie and Colette. I was very thrilled to do their paperwork and work with them. And I don't know how many of you know Dr. Marion Lane, the historian that just spoke here in town last week. She's just moved her membership to the
I do
Williamsburg
know her.
chapter.
I do know her.
She just moved her membership to the Williamsburg chapter
She's
so that
Valley
we
Forge
can help
before.
her establish a line back to the Atkins and the Native American patriot that was there. And so we will tell you right now, you are more than welcome. And Elizabeth knows because she's worked with me on digging on certain things. You are more than welcome at any time. Would be extremely pleased to help you in any way we can.
So, Elizabeth, this is Johnette. If I could just say a word or two. You are more than welcome. It is your birthright if it's what you choose to do. I just shared with somebody that you don't have to join DAR, but you can join DAR. And what's important about that is just the fact that you recognize that you have ancestors that fought for freedom, just like everybody else. And the Williamsburg chapter is the very best chapter of the DAR across the nation. I highly recommend it, and I would welcome you all with open arms. I am actually out in public, so I'm going to get off of the phone now, but I'd love to see you all show up for a meeting or two. And it's great to see everybody on the Bray School meeting tonight.
Thanks, Johnette.
Hi, Teddy. I'm not having my.
Okay. All right.
I know you only got a minute, but Stephanie Dunmore is on this call. And
Yes.
I sent her an email this morning because she's my new DNA cousin on the Ashby side.
Terrific. Well, welcome, Stephanie. We're glad to have you here this evening. Folks, I am looking at the time and it is already after 7 o'clock. I'm happy to keep going. I've got a few more bits of information to share. But if if you need to go, I totally understand. The rest of this talk will be on our YouTube recording. I appreciate everybody being here and sticking with us. And this has been quite the lovely, lively conversation. I don't want that to end just yet, but I just wanted to recognize that we are a bit over time. I'm going to go quickly through just a few bits more of information that I want to be able to share out. And then let me just go ahead. So 1850 census, we know that that's the census where finally it's not just the head of household is listed, but finally we get the rest of the families in family members in that household. So, so yeah, so this is the William Ashby family with his wife Maria, daughters Mary and Letitia, sons William and Thomas and Jonathan. This is in York County, and we see that they were all born in York County. So these are Ashbys in 1850. We're going to jump forward.
They're oystermen.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And an 1865 census was done after the end of the Civil War to really kind of get a kind of a tally on the free the people of color. Everybody was free at that point. The free people of color in 1865 in York County. And so these are just, I think I've got almost all the Ashbys listed here with the exception of one family of Emmanuel Ashby with a wife, Fanny. But right now on the left-hand side, you see Emmanuel Ashby with his wife, Tisha, and daughter Alice and son William. Again, we've got that repetition of that name. The Williams keep getting repeated. They're located at Darlington Farm. And so Emmanuel Ashby was at Darlington Farm. Tisha was at River Shore with the rest of her children. This is in that area that's going to become Magruder and the reservation. We have a William Ashby, Susan, his wife, and then Matthew and William, their children. They're on Tinsley Farm. That's right next, that's also on the reservation area. That's eventually going to become the reservation area. We have a Thomas Ashby and a Mason Ashby on a Mrs. Anderson's land. That's a little bit farther east toward Yorktown, but still in that same area between Kings Creek and Yorktown. On the Williamsburg side, we have John and Jane Ashby. They're living in Williamsburg with their children, Matthew, Mary, Emily, and Rhoda.
Rhoda Bertha.
Exactly.
Can I interrupt you? I hate to do this, but I gotta. So
Go
because
for it.
people on this thing, they want to know about the Ashby. So Jane Ashby here, her name is Jane Lively Shepherd, and she is check on how many? She's a Native American.
Okay.
And she married an older man, John. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, we do see the age difference there. John's 46 and Jane is 29. Yep. We definitely see that. And then also in Williamsburg, we have a Matt Ashby and an M.E. Ashby with a W.H. Ashby. Gotta love it when they use initials, and it doesn't help the genealogists. But what's
It's
curious,
either Henry or Hillier.
could be, yep.
The middle names are Henry or Hillier.
Okay. And the curious thing about this Matt Ashby is that in 1865, this 35-year-old Matt Ashby, his occupation is shoemaker. And so then we're seeing, it's not the same as the Matt Ashby who apprenticed with John Cole, but we see a through line there of an occupation. And so those are the things that, kind of make the sparks go for the genealogist, that what is the connections? What's the continuation? What's being passed down through these families? What's the legacy that these families are leaving for their next generation? So I just kind of throw that out there. I know we're kind of going a little bit quicker here, but any questions or comments, anything to add on this slide?
Yeah. Rhoda Bertha Ashby's family, people on the call, they actually moved on up here to Delaware County, Pennsylvania, and their descendants live to this day in Pennsylvania.
Wonderful, yeah.
Okay. And I know most all of them.
That's excellent, Teddy. All right. So these are the trees that we've been able to assemble so far. We have Matthew and John, the original gentlemen from the 1720s to their children topping out at 1796. Then we have a gap in time. We have an Elizabeth Ashby who was born in 1812. We've been able to trace out her to her 3 times great-grandchildren from 1812 to the present. We have a William Ashby who was born in 1820. We've traced him out to his 3 times great-grandchildren. John Ashby, born in 1824, to his great-grandchildren. And we were wondering whether William and John, being born so close to each other, may actually be brothers. We're not sure. They could be cousins and just contemporaries. And then we have another William Ashby who was born in 1831. We've been able to trace him to his 2 times great-grandchildren. So from 1831 to the present. But we still have that gap. We still have that gap to kind of close. And that's where our research has kind of left us. And so these are the questions that that I'm left with.
That's
And
I got that gap.
yeah, yep. So so that's where we're kind of stuck, but I wanted to be able to show that this still is a work in progress. And these are the questions that I have. And I welcome your questions. I welcome your comments. And I so appreciate the members of the Ashby family being here with us this evening to be able to lend their experience and their knowledge as well. So I will kind of be quiet now and I open the floor up to the conversation. I see things happening in the chat.
Okay.
So, anybody? All right. So
You
while
know what, Elizabeth, you didn't say anything about the first William, the William of 1820, that he was murdered. He was murdered by he was an oysterman. You had that information?
I did not have that. There's a lot that I wasn't able to put in this evening. I was trying to kind of I had to pick and choose some things, but yes, I do have that story. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing screen now so I can kind of be a little bit more of a part of this. So are there questions, comments, things that I can go back to?
Elizabeth,
Yes.
everything that you went through tonight was good. It was quick. It was moving. I'm trying to keep up with it. So when I say simple because I'm trying to navigate between finding out these pieces because, as you and I talked, we saw hopefully which side Emmanuel had, and then Emmanuel's somewhat, we figured, a cousin, which was where another set of Ashbys that we have here locally that we're trying to get together. And so Teddy had given me a whole lot and that we were sharing. And so my youngest cousin, Joyce Swin is another cousin that has been trying to dig up so we can get for her younger first cousins. And so I would like us to be able to continue to try because there's a gap in it that we can't see. When you go on that tree over there at Colonial Williamsburg, it comes always down to a line. And as you saw, you picked out all of the children of Emmanuel and everything. But like you say, that gap, and I would hopefully that one day that we'll be able to get that little piece of gap together. Ted and I just figured we're cousins simply because we're Ashby's, and the way we kept going to the piece, we still found what's the word? We found that vacant spot, but
No, it is not a mystery because it's not a mystery because I found out how Emmanuel was related to William and John, and so that tree that's in the Ashby guest house, I got to get it down.
And so Jane Lord had said there were a lot of children. Not Jane Lord. What is Lowe? Oh Lord, I can't think of a name. I'm getting old now. I'm Brian, but she was showing us there were like you saw the double names. The connections together is like when a family left and started out, that one person netted a whole group or generation of people, and so trying to put them back together. I guess I'm
right. Right, that's what we're gonna, I will, what I was not able to put on my
Right,
slides
that,
is
that was-
this family tree that we've been working out to connect. I can't fit this on a slide.
I'm gonna help you with that. So you know what? Something else. You know the Gardners are in Williamsburg, and so I like to mention the fact that John Ashby and Jane Lively's daughter Nancy Ashby, she married Dennis Frazier in 1870, and I had the distinct privilege of meeting their daughter Lydia Ashby Frazier, who was born in 1902. When I met her, she was about 100 years old, not 1,000, and she married Clifton Gardner. So those Gardners that are in Williamsburg, right? And I think you met them in the Gardners. So that's how they are also my cousins. You see how that works?
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
Dennis Frazier Gardner and married Jacqueline Roberts in 19. I guess I'm not. Well, they're married now. They got to. But I'm just showing you how those descendants. I have all the. I have to send you my family pre-make report so that you can stay what you call. Because and then we can work on getting a new tree for the Ashby guest house.
Exactly. Yeah, no,
Hello,
we've got
family.
hello.
Stephanie. Teddy, I just got your message on Ancestry. I'm glad that you are now a new cousin of mine.
Oh yeah, your name is
and
Stephanie.
For everyone else, if you want to take a look at my family tree, I do have over 6,000 people on there.
Got too many for me.
And it will help sometimes to find the lines because I'm a descendant, of course, of Williamsburg, Virginia. My mother's been telling me these stories for over 50 years now. I just celebrated my birthday, so it's been over 50 years. I've been hearing the stories and the family connections. I'm here with Johnette. Well, Johnette was here with me. She just ate pizza with us. Who else is Bonnie's in the background? These are all the people that know and that we've been working together. I'm a new person to the team, but if anyone wants to contact me, we can talk about these things. I can find somebody on your tree to make a connection. I'm sure I can. And I just want to leave this one thought. We've been laughing about this, but literally there's about 12 families in this area that somehow are connected. I kid you not. All the names that Teddy just mentioned are on my tree. I've gone to graveyards, I've gone to churches, I've looked and looked and looked. We are all connected. We may not be DNA related, but we are connected. This area is so unique. It is so wonderful. It has a rich history. Thank you, Elizabeth, for putting this together and all the other genies that have done the work and making some sense and some paths for us to fill in the gaps.
Yes.
Thank you. I call myself an amateur genie, but this work is fantastic. I love it. I love it. Teddy, when we get off this call me. Okay, cuz
I can't call you. I don't have any phone number. I'm the one that gave you the information, remember?
I put my telephone number in the message that I messaged you back. I said, call me, and I gave you my number.
Where is it? Oh, in the
You
chat?
gotta go to Ancestry. Go to Ancestry.
Oh, I gave you my email. Try to use it.
Okay, I'll call you.
Let's be
Cousin,
grown
I'll
up.
call you.
Let's be grown
Okay.
up. Use my email. Send me whatever you need. I don't need to go on Ancestry just to call you.
Okay, I'll call you.
Thank you so much.
Love all of you. Love you.
That's like a time.
Thank you for being here. Wow.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
So good. Oh, thank you. Folks, this is the longest we've ever gone. So I am thrilled.
Well, guess what? My meetings I have on Saturday, they go from 10 to 2 o'clock sometimes.
Okay. No, I've got
That's your interest group.
That's way past my bedtime.
Not a problem.
Folks, I'm thrilled. I'm happy to keep talking. But we are wow, 7:18. This is amazing and amazing information. I do want to let you all know before I forget, because Danny will kill me if I didn't. So on November 1st in Williamsburg, The restored Williamsburg Bray School will be open to the public. There'll be quite a bit of ceremony. We'd love to have you join us and be here for that. So please keep that date in mind. We also have a Slate seminar coming up at the end of October. That is the Bray School Labs annual conference. Please visit our website to, if you're interested in attending the sessions. We've got some amazing speakers coming in, descending community members speaking. We're gonna be talking a lot about what we've learned over the last year and various aspects of the research. So I wanted to make sure that I got those two things mentioned. But again, I will put a bibliography together with sources and links of the records that we've been going through today. And if anybody has any other questions, please stay on. I'm happy to, I know we kind of went fast and furious with a whole lot of records. I'm happy to still have a conversation this evening, or if you want to reach out to me at the Bray School Lab, happy to have conversation by phone or in person.